Yesterday, Governor Jerry Brown delivered the State of the State address in Sacramento.
The governor said that times of belt tightening are behind us, but there are also more pitfalls potentially on the horizon. Joining us now is local Assemblyman Nestande of Palm Desert with a look at the state of politics in the state of California. Assemblyman, thanks for joining us. What did you think of the governor's speech, and is the austerity measures over already in California?
Well, I thought it was a good speech. He had a lot of actually what I thought were Republican ideas in there. He talked about fiscal restraint. He talked about undoing some regulation, the complexity of our laws and our regulation, and too many laws. He actually said, he laid down, which was interesting. He said, put the 10 Commandments next to the Education Code, and you'll see how complex our laws are. And I agree with him wholeheartedly. And actually, I have a bill. First bill I introduced was to limit the number of bills that we could introduce because there are far too many. So I agree with him on a lot of what he said.
What's in store for California in 2013?
Well, I think a lot of issues that he addressed, some I agree with, some I don't. And for one thing, he talked about the healthcare, the implementation of the Federal Health Care Act. And the problem with that, I see, is going to be we're going to have to put a lot more people on Medi-Cal when we really don't have the provider network to support that, the doctors. And our reimbursement rate is very low to doctors. And so adding millions more people onto those roles, I don't think is going to work, particularly because I don't think the federal government's ultimately going to give us the money that they're promising us. They have a very bad track record of giving money to the states that they promise. So I think we're going to be saddled with another huge debt in a couple years.
Well, let's talk about that, because a lot of the debt was dealt with by cutting back in education and also cutting back in the criminal justice system. Fewer prisoners, fewer prisons, fewer judges. Are we going to be able to maybe hire some teachers and some judges and get people locked up or who deserve to be locked up?
Yeah, I hope so, because I've been working on education reform with the governor. We've had a few discussions on it, and I hope I'm going to be working on some education reforms that I think he and I agree with, and hopefully we'll be able to not only put more teachers in the classroom, but reform our system and have a better way to teach. A lot of online education, I think, is the future, and also just a different method and a different way of allocating the funding streams for education to get that more efficient, and that'll save dollars as well.
Our area has one of the highest unemployment rates in the entire nation. What are we going to be able to do to get our people back to work?
Well, and that's one area I think the governor kind of came up short on. He didn't talk, I didn't believe it, he didn't talk enough about job creation. The one piece that he has on job creation, which is the high-speed rail, I think is just a mistake. It's billions of dollars we're going to put into a system that I think ultimately cannot be built. The math tells you the money is just not there. We don't have $100 billion to put into the system. So I think we're going to waste $8 or $10 billion in the Central Valley on a small piece of track that will never be completed. So I think, and that's really one area he talked about. Another area actually I did agree with, he talked about secret reform, the California Environmental Quality Act, which is very cumbersome, very large, and it's very hard to get things built with that act. And you can pare that down, have a streamlined law in that area that will get projects built much quicker. I agree with him on that. I worked last year on some legislation that didn't get passed, but hopefully this year, with his help, it will.
All right, Assemblyman Nestande, thanks for joining us tonight. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Pleasure.
See you soon. Still to come tonight on your KMIR 6 News at 5 o'clock.